Once upon a time in Italy, a local resident decided to engage in a romantic affair with a charming Moldavian woman who had come to work there. Or perhaps it was she who initiated a relationship with the son of the household she was employed by. And then he also pursued a relationship with her sister. Or was it the sister who initiated it? In any case, the story revolves around who finally disappeared without a trace, and who is serving a life sentence. The video will explore these events. Tanya wanted to buy a house. Born in 1973 in Moldova, she had her fair share of domestic instability. Like most girls of that time, she got married early and had a child. She also divorced early, and in order to earn money for her dream, she went abroad in the year 2000 like hundreds of thousands of women from the ruins of the USSR. Tanya left her 4-year-old daughter Lena with her grandmother, also named Lena, and her teenage sister Alla, and headed to Italy to seek prosperity. She settled in the small but picturesque town of Gradoli, where she cleaned other people's houses and tried to earn money for her own home. It wasn't easy, even if she worked hard. She had to pay for housing and food, send money to her relatives in Moldova, and finally pay taxes. What was left for her future home? And can we blame Tanya for grabbing onto Paolo, the Italian who came her way, with whatever money he had, and most importantly, a villa? Especially since, at least initially, Paolo was quite gallant, young, tall, and handsome. Paolo wanted to have some fun. At the time Tanya arrived, he was 31 years old, and it had been less than a year since his divorce was finalized. By the way, they divorced at the initiative of his wife, who caught him in bed with another woman. Although it's not surprising that a 30-year-old Italian hadn't had enough fun, it's rather strange that he was married at all, considering that by local standards, 30 years old is still a boy. They even call Paolo Bamboccioni in the town, which means big baby. Or easygoing. Paolo is very calm and good-natured. He is a Mr. Fix-It. Electrical appliances, wiring, computers, everything is within his skill set. Paolo has his own workshop, but it's more of a proud title because in reality he does everything himself, with his own hands and feet. He has to run around and work, but the orders are lucrative and clients have to wait their turn. Especially since overtimes are not typical for Italians, and Paolo also wants to rest. In Gradoli there are just over 1,000 residents, about 50% of whom are elderly or children, and 100% are friends and relatives of his ex-wife. So, can we judge Paolo for deciding to approach the young and attractive foreign girl? Especially since, at least initially, he valued Tanya not only for her beauty. Paolo considered Tanya sincere because on their very first date she mentioned that she had a daughter in Moldova and wanted to bring her to Italy. Men tend to idealize women, especially when they desire them. So it didn't cross Paolo's mind. Maybe Tanya laid all her cards on the table not out of sincerity, but because she didn't want to waste time with someone who didn't fit into her plans. But it seems that Paolo passed the initial tests. Their relationship developed rapidly. Women tend to think that if a man is willing to share a bed with them, it means he will fulfill all their other desires. Paolo was used to going with the flow, especially if it led to pleasure. Tanya was used to rowing against the stream, especially towards her goal. It seemed that if they didn't match, they would simply drift away from each other and head towards their own shores, just as Paolo's first wife successfully drifted away. Who was the first to cling to the other and start drowning them? Paolo, who thanks to Tanya's tales of wanting to expedite the relocation of her daughter to Italy, received full service for all his needs, and Tanya's housework for his parents became free. Or Tanya, who agreed to all this and despite Paolo never marrying her, gave birth to their daughter Erica in 2003. However, this round ended in favor of Moldova. Paolo and his parents adore their only granddaughter, and Tanya went from being a lodger to the mother of the heir apparent. She finally brings her eldest daughter to live with her. And along with her daughter come her mother and sister because Tanya needs help with the children, or else she won't be able to work tirelessly for an entire cleaning company alone. But did Paolo want her to continue working so hard? Did he want such a massive invasion of Tanya's relatives into their little family nest? Who would ask him anyway, since Tanya wants a home? After some thought, Tanya decided that her 48-year-old mother, who had raised 2 children, would be worse suited to the role of a helper than her 18-year-old sister. So her mother soon moves to Bologna to help others and earn money, while Alla stays behind to help her own family for free. And now, Alla, or Alla, as the Italians call her, the wing. According to the residents of Gradoli, she has a strong character because of her difficult childhood. As for why they consider her sister's character soft in her childhood, accordingly not difficult, one should ask them. But the fact that Alla is outgoing, lively and active is undeniable. Alla wanted? By the way, what did Alla want? Has anyone ever asked her what she wants? Does a young girl who has just finished school want to continue studying, hang out with friends, have romantic relationships? Or maybe she wants to get married and, following her mother's example, have children right away. Although there may be doubts, of course she wants to go to a foreign country, live in seclusion on a farm, and spend her youth wiping the noses of her older sister's children, cooking pasta for her older sister's boyfriend, and cleaning the house of her older sister's boyfriend, so that the older sister can earn money for herself, her house, and her retirement. Can we judge Alla for acting in her own interests? Especially since, until a certain point, the interests of the sisters coincided, although it is not clear until when. One thing is certain. Less than a year after Alla arrived at Tatiana's house, she and Paolo became lovers. They are guilty. Punto e basta. It is precisely after this fact was revealed in court that Paolo and Alla became devilish lovers in the eyes of Italians, while Tatiana became a saintly martyr. There is little joy in her position indeed, but still, what makes her endure it? Alla arrived in 2003 and lived with Paolo and Tatiana until 2006. It was only then that Alla left, according to the lover's version, because she was tired of her sister's jealousy, and according to the all-knowing public version, Tatiana kicked Alla out because she found out about the affair. Of course, the public knows better, but let's take a closer look at the situation. So Tatiana knows that her partner is quite a philanderer. He cheated on his wife with their neighbor. After the birth of Erika, Tatiana is too busy to engage in sex. Tatiana complains to her Italian friend. She thinks that Paolo has someone else, and she is afraid that she and her older daughter will be kicked out of the house. Italians believe that she is lying because they are convinced that Tatiana kicked Alla out when she found out that the affair with Paolo did exist. But is it possible that for almost 3 years she didn't notice anything? That she, out of foolishness and already tormented by jealousy and suspicion, would present such a morally unstable and sexually deprived partner with such a temptation? And all the while, she expelled their mother from the house. And by the way, how did Tatiana's mother know, if not from Tatiana herself, that the relationship between her younger daughter and her potential son-in-law began just 4 or 5 months after they met? What if Tatiana didn't necessarily want a relationship between her sister and her partner, but allowed it because it was the safest option for herself? And she kicked Alla out, not because of the relationship itself, but because Alla started to claim a place not only in Paolo's bed, but also among the owners of the villa. It doesn't seem so unlikely when you know what Tatiana is willing to do to remain the mistress of this house. But let's go through everything in the order. So in 2006, Alla leaves Paolo's house. But Tatiana stays, even though she knows their relationship continues. Sometimes people say that such a situation can satisfy everyone, but not in this case. There is a war in the house. Paolo wants Tatiana to rid him of her presence, but she refuses to do so. And she holds a nuclear bomb in her hands, their shared daughter, without whom the father cannot imagine his life. And so, in 2007, Paolo tries to solve the problem. He arms himself with a fake certificate from a psychiatrist, stating that Tatiana has an undefined mental disorder, and goes to court to obtain full custody of Erika.
The monster wanted to make the poor woman suffer by taking away her child.
The public opinion was outraged.
Why did you do this?
Asks the famous journalist.
There is no specific motive.
The monster replies, not even attempting to justify himself. The journalist is right. Such things are not done without reasons. And the reason is stated in court, documented by Tatiana's mother. He was afraid that she would take Erika to Russia. Was he afraid in vain? Or could Tatiana, who had a Russian passport, pose a threat to Paolo with that? Italy is different from Finland. Foreign mothers can take their children born in Italy abroad without the need for private detectives' assistance. There are entire associations of fathers who have lost their children in this way, so the psychiatrist, as an Italian man, simply tried to help a father in a high-risk group. What's interesting here is that Paolo, instead of painting a picture of how terrible a mother Tatiana was, directly states that there is not a word of truth in the certificate. He doesn't say anything bad about Tatiana at all, and you will understand why at the end of this video, so let's continue. Thus, Tanya becomes aware of the ongoing social services case. As a foreigner without housing and a stable income, she will have to fight against the juvenile system as a whole, and each resident of the town individually. And all of them naturally will defend their guy. You might think she would grab her children and run away before it's too late to a place where they cannot be taken away. You guessed wrong. Tatiana is a fighter. She calls a lawyer, and after meeting with him on the same day, she starts keeping a diary. In Italian. Oh, you thought a cry of the soul is always in one's native language? No. In this case, about the most intimate means a neat, grammatically incorrect record of family life events. Elena was home with her father today and didn't go to school. I don't know the reasons. Today the father wasn't home. I played with the younger daughter, met the older one from school, fed them both. I am happy when my children are with me. And in between, she writes us about how she is completely alone and how she is very afraid because she hears Paolo and Alla over the phone, plotting something terrible against her and their older daughter. Yes, that's right. Something terrible is being planned against you and your child, and you simply record the date neatly in your diary. Your friend lives a mile away, your aunt lives 20 kilometers away, and your mother lives 3 hours drive away. But instead of hastily fleeing from the place where your child is in danger, you practice your Italian. What is it? Does Tatiana want this house so badly, or is she not so afraid? Or maybe both? However, Tatiana wins this round with a crushing victory, and it's not thanks to the diary at all. One fine day, of course by sheer coincidence among the children's CDs, Tatiana finds a video. It shows her beloved sister with her beloved man doing things that are not usually shown in cartoons. How the video that only existed on the computer made its way onto a CD and then onto the children's shelf, Paolo, the computer technician, never understood. But it doesn't really matter whether Tatiana was looking for compromising material or it was found on its own. What matters is that she managed to handle it. She took one copy to her mother for safekeeping and the other to her lawyer. It's not entirely clear what exactly frightened Paolo in that video. There is nothing unusual in it except the process of him betraying a woman he is not even married to. However, the fact remains, the hero lover not only dropped all claims of exclusive custody of his daughter, but also agreed to sign a contract with Tatiana, binding him hand and foot. Paolo was obliged to live with Tatiana and jointly raise both girls. Why does a man's infidelity become a reason for one woman to throw him out of her life, and a motive for another to make him constantly present in hers? That's the question. But on the day the contract is signed, Tatiana stops keeping her diary. Apparently, she is no longer afraid or lonely. Any contract attorney will tell you that a good deal is one that satisfies both parties. Surprisingly, this contract was upheld for a whole year and a half. Tanya managed the household. Paolo gave her rides to work. They raised the girls together. Paolo continued to see Alla, while Tanya made plans to marry a military man to receive an army pension after his death. According to Paolo, she even shared personal life updates with him and planned to move in with her lover. Whether this was true or not remains unknown, as gossip circulated in the town. However, those pointed fingers did not lead to any confession, nor did it affect their cohabitation as partners. Alla attempted to rock the family boat. Apparently, she was the only one dissatisfied with the situation. In countless text messages, she transitioned from jokes like, "Let's have sex in front of her, maybe she'll die of a heart attack," to persistent demands, "That bitch has to go." Finally, she presented an ultimatum. If Paolo didn't make a decision by September 2009, their relationship would end. Paolo made promises and promises again. This strange balance remained intact even when Tanya informed her friend that she had found something in Paolo's computer, something that would prevent him from seeing the child again. And indeed, he wouldn't have seen her. The something was later identified as minor pornography materials. Tanya informed her lawyer again, and renewed her diary with entries of how her partner and sister would surely do something terrible to her and Elena, and again. She did not leave, nowhere. Imagine this. You have 2 daughters, a charming 6-year-old and a fully grown teenager, and you regularly leave them alone with a person you consider a pedophile. How large should a house be for you to force them to live with a potential killer for several months? And why do you report all these horrors to your lawyer and friends but not to the police? Oh, if only Tanya had reported it to the police, then most likely she wouldn't have obtained the house anyway, but that's incomparable to how this story ended for all its participants. The police eventually intervened. On May 30th, 2009, Tatiana and her older daughter Lena disappeared. Initially they thought Tanya had run away, but her mother deemed it impossible and raised the alarm. She revealed the love triangle and accused Paolo and Alla, her younger daughter, of the disappearance. There was no evidence of them fleeing to Moldova, and there was no news from the missing individuals. The last time they were seen was entering the ill-fated house, but there was no one who could confirm that they had left. So the police concluded that Tanya and Elena were dead, and everything happened in the villa. And who else but the owner and her lover could have committed the crime and hidden the bodies? A month later, Paolo was arrested on charges of murder and concealing corpses, followed by Alla's arrest a month after that. Although the bodies were never found by the police, and forensic analysis disproved the presence of any crime scene evidence in the house, and Alla and Paolo vehemently denied their guilt, the court considered the murder have been committed by them, as they had both the motive and the opportunity. The sisters' mother testified on the side of the prosecution. Both were found guilty. The case went through all the legal instances, and despite their continued insistence on their innocence, Paolo and Alla have only one chance for acquittal, if Tanya is found. In 2011, Paolo Esposito and Alla Cheoban were sentenced to life imprisonment, Paolo as the perpetrator and Alla as the organizer and instigator. The appeal upheld Paolo's sentence but recognized that Alla merely assisted in concealing the bodies, reducing her sentence to 8 years. In 2015, she was released from prison and remained in Italy illegally until 2018, when her presence was finally noticed, and she was deported from the country. Shortly before her release, Alla agreed to meet with Tanya's mother. Despite the younger daughter continuing to deny her involvement in the older sister's disappearance, her mother didn't believe her, just as she hadn't believed her all this time. In the same year, at the age of 60, Elena Nikifor passed away. Enrico Esposito, Paolo's father, died in 2022 without saying goodbye to his son. Maria Lorenzini, his mother, remained alone. She doesn't see her granddaughter Erika anymore. The child was taken from them and placed in a shelter, and later in a foster family, where they allowed her to communicate with her maternal grandmother but not her paternal one. Paolo Esposito is serving a life sentence in prison, working as an electrician, and is well regarded. He is not granted the privileges given to exemplary prisoners because he is considered a danger to society due to his refusal to admit guilt. The prison psychologist states that Paolo has come to terms with his life sentence, but not with the fact that his daughter was taken away from him. During the trial, he was allowed a few visits with her. Through a prolonged hunger strike, he managed to secure permission to speak with Erika on the phone once a week. But after the sentencing, his parental rights were revoked and communication ceased. In a televised interview years later, Paolo stated that he is waiting for Erika to come of age and decide for herself if she wants to see him. He firmly believes that his daughter just needs to look into his eyes, and she will understand everything. Erika Esposito turned 18 in 2021. In January 2022, Paolo experienced his first heart attack. After the second one, he underwent heart surgery and filed a request to change his conditions of confinement due to his deteriorating health, but no decision has been made yet. Perhaps he will live long enough to see Erika. According to Italian law, adopted children gain access to information about their biological parents when they turn 25. In 2019, the practice of declaring Tatiana and Alla Cheoban deceased began, although their bodies have not been found, leaving a chance that they are still alive. Unfortunately, hopes for that are slim. Even if, as some say, Tatiana wanted to teach Paolo a lesson, too much points to the fact that she did not intend to disappear forever on that day. There is another unpleasant circumstance. Tanya did not drive, and she did not leave on public transport. This means that either they did not leave the villa at all, or someone gave them a ride. A beautiful woman with a beautiful teenage girl who were never seen again. What other possibilities are there? Personally, I like this version. Tanya met a military pensioner with the house of her dreams. He invited her to dinner with her daughters to get to know them. Erica was with her grandmother that day, and only Elena went. The pensioner was so impressed with Tanya that he immediately proposed, and she accepted. Unfortunately, in her happiness, Tanya lost her memory, along with Elena. Or no, they simply got into an accident on the way and lost their memory due to the impact, so Tanya didn't call her mother or daughter. In any case, one would like to believe that Tanya and Elena are now living the life Tatiana always dreamed of. But Erica really wants to meet her mother. If you have seen them or have any information about them, please write.